My fiancé told me that if you can grow flowers more beautiful than the Damascus rose, we would hold our wedding in the rose garden. I listened to his words and started taking care of the flowers day and night. One day, the white moonlight suddenly said she wanted to see the rose rain to make her happy. My fiancé didn't hesitate to tear down the 300 acres of roses I had planted. Lucas, are you sure about this? Will my sister be upset? Lucas took out a 10-carat ring from his pocket. He knelt on one knee and said, "Nothing else matters, I only love you." I held back my inner pain. I made a call home. "Dad, you said before that as long as I broke up with him, I could inherit the family fortune. Is that still true, Dad? I was wrong before. Now I want to go home." Dad, on the other end of the phone, was stunned for a moment. He asked in surprise, "Are you sure? I'll take you to France after you come home. You might not come back for 10 or 8 years. You previously ignored your family for those 300 acres of roses. You always said you only loved Lucas. How come you don't love him now?" I stood in a messy rose garden. I picked up a relatively intact rose. I managed to force a smile. "I don't love him anymore. Love can't compare to making money." My voice trembled a bit when I spoke. Dad didn't say much more. He only reminded me in the end, "It will take me 3 days to pick you up. During these 3 days, take care of your personal matters. After all, we've been together for so many years. Let's part ways peacefully." I quietly agreed. I looked down at the bracelet on my wrist engraved with scriptures. I was a bit distracted. Indeed, we have loved each other for a long time, just as I was lost in memories. The phone vibrated with a message from Lucas. "Didn't you see the message? The house needs to be cleaned. Hurry back. The living room in the photo is filled with roses everywhere." I didn't reply to the message. I just picked up the intact roses and set them aside, waiting to confirm that they are all placed properly. I was wearing muddy shoes, walking back to the villa on the mountain. "Is it really that hard to get you to come back?" Lucas frowned, leaning against the sofa. He was unhappy about my delay in coming home. The floor was wet and slippery. It was particularly difficult to walk. I squatted down and began to tidy up the clutter on the floor. Suddenly, I found an old ring covered in scratches, just as I was about to put it in my pocket. Lucas called out to me, "Don't move. That doesn't belong to you." Lucas's words were like lighting a fuse. It immediately drew the attention of everyone present. "Sis, this ring isn't yours." Lucas's friend looked at me with a curious gaze. There was a hint of disdain in his tone. "Anyway, that's something someone else discarded. It doesn't matter if you pick it up." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone around nodded in agreement. "Exactly. Sis, your outfit really does look like you picked up trash." I looked at my own attire, then glanced around. Compared to those well-dressed young masters and ladies, I indeed seemed out of place. I remained silent, only gently brushed off the dust from my clothes. I knew these people. They were either rich second generations or successful first-generation wealthy individuals. And what about me? I'm just a gardener, at least, on the surface. That's how it appears. I touched the bracelet. I looked up at Lucas, who had been smiling quietly. I'm pondering in my heart. What will he say? Lucas has been staring at me. The smile in his eyes is cold. It seems he hasn't heard what others are saying at all. Others find it uninteresting. After they stopped talking, he walked in front of me. He handed me the broom and said, "Look, they all call you sister-in-law. They were joking about you picking up trash." Seeing that I still didn't react, only then did he turn his head. He casually said a few words to those people. "All right, it was all a joke just now. It definitely won't be like this in the future." The once quiet living room became lively again. I remained silent, only focused on cleaning, calculating in my heart how to leave gracefully. Suddenly, the front door opened. Emily walked in slowly, wearing a red evening gown. Slowly walked in. Lucas. As soon as she finished speaking, the living room suddenly fell silent. Everyone immediately straightened their backs. They displayed their most spirited state. Lucas was the same. I was pushed into a corner. He reached out to support Emily, who was slowly walking over. He said softly, "Why are you back again?" Emily slowly walked to the pile of roses. It seemed like she was looking for something. She said, "I seem to have forgotten to take the old ring with me. I'm back to look for it." After Lucas heard this, he looked up at me standing in the distance. His eyes carried a reminder. "Hurry up and bring over the ring you just picked up. Don't let Emily bend down. She will get tired." Everyone was staring at me, as if I were a heinous criminal. They turned on the lights. The bright light made me feel even more awkward. It turns out, even Emily's trash became my evidence. I feel like I'm not worthy of having these, all of a sudden. I don't want to stay here anymore. He stands up, ready to leave. Others see that I'm about to leave. Hastily reminds Lucas. Lucas, Zaya Ozai is just temporarily keeping it. Why do you have to be so fierce? Lucas didn't hear this. His brow is tightly furrowed. He said without thinking, then I'll let her take it. Is there something wrong? He suddenly realizes something. He silently lets go of Emily's hand. He awkwardly scratches his arm. He explains, this isn't because Emily's skirt makes it inconvenient to squat down. That's why I'm so anxious. I force a smile, but that smile is full of bitterness because he doesn't love me, so he doesn't care about my feelings at all. I take the ring out of my pocket. I hand it to Emily. Emily doesn't take it. She says in a sharp voice, since my sister likes it, then I'll give it to you, she said while raising her hand adorned with a large ring. Anyway, I have a new one now. The old one doesn't fit anymore. My sister, you probably don't have one, right? Emily gazed affectionately at Lucas. Her voice was drawn out, like a spoiled cat. You can ask Lucas to buy one for you. It's not expensive either. But there's one situation. He has already bought DR using his ID before. If you really want it, you might have to ask someone else to buy it. Although Emily kept insisting verbally, her face was full of grievance. When I saw the bracelet on her wrist engraved with the mantra, I suddenly felt as ridiculous as a clown, giving a lifetime ring to an internet celebrity, yet only buying a roadside trinket for my real girlfriend. I felt like rose petals on the ground, used and then tossed away. I pushed Emily's hand away. I walked straight out the door. In the hall, everyone is talking about me. They say I'm being unreasonable. Someone said, if you have the ability, don't come back. If it weren't for Lucas supporting her, she would have been wandering who knows where long ago. All right, stop talking. And she still calls herself a rose. I've never seen such an ugly rose. Lucas looked very upset. He watched me walk away with a stern expression. It was cold in the mountains in the evening. The sunlight seemed to hint that our relationship was about to end. I looked at the geese flying south. My thoughts drifted back to the past. He said I was like a rosebud ready to bloom. He wanted to be the little prince, but I thought the little prince's companion should be a fox, so I repeatedly rejected his confessions. That spring, he bought me this rose garden. He covered my eyes with his hand. Take me to the mountaintop covered in roses. That day, the air was filled with the scent of flowers. He held me. He promised to give those roses a stable home. I used to long for freedom, but his one sentence made me give up that pursuit. I moved into the greenhouse he built for me. We have been together for 5 years. We've had many sweet moments in this rose manor. After every intimate moment, he would tell me he would definitely marry me. Until now, I have realized that his promises are worthless. Aside from the 6-character mantra in my hand, he gave me nothing. A false prince, a false love. And that poor rose, before the tears fell, I broke that unsuitable bracelet. Lucas, you can never keep a rose. Dad's trip will take 2 more days. I'm taking advantage of the fact that Lucas hasn't woken up yet. I'll go back early to pack my luggage. Lucas was awakened by my voice. He asked, a bit dazed. What are you packing? I'm busy packing my things. I didn't even look at him. Later, a flower expert came to give a class. I have to go to the city to attend the lecture. Lucas's gaze was clear, with a hint of mischief. He shook out the clothes I had folded. Then he lay on my lap, his head resting on my knee. He said with a smile, how about I invite him back home? I really can't stand the days without you. Looking at this face, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. I really don't understand how I could tolerate such arrogance and hypocrisy before. I pushed his head away and continued with my own things. Lucas grabbed my hand. I suddenly realized that the bracelet had deeply embedded itself into my flesh and was missing from my sleeve. His smile immediately froze. He asked, where did the bracelet go? Where did it go? It clearly can't be taken off. He also knows that the bracelet doesn't actually fit well. I got covered in mud while digging in the flower bed yesterday. Last night, I took it to the shop to have it cleaned. Maybe it's because I mentioned the roses. Lucas's expression suddenly became a bit awkward. He smiled slightly. He lowered his head and kissed me. I knew you wouldn't lose it, but now that flower is already dirty. I'll buy you a new bouquet tomorrow. Yeah, it's all dirty now. That bracelet was given to me by him. It was when I grew my first rose. I picked that blooming flower and ran in front of him saying, Lucas, we're one step closer to getting married. When Lucas saw the rose, he was stunned for a moment. Then he took out a plain silver bracelet from his chest pocket and put it on my hand. That day, It was the happiest day of my life, that somewhat inappropriate bracelet. It was tightly bound around my wrist at that time. Because of a worthless bracelet, I determined that he would be my support for the rest of my life. Looking back now, that kind of thinking was so naive it breaks my heart. I packed my suitcase. I sat at the dining table eating yesterday's leftover cake. Suddenly, a notification popped up on my phone's home screen. Emily posted photos of her proposal on her Moments. The photos were carefully edited. Amidst the fluttering rose petals, Lucas was on one knee, holding a ring box in his hand. In the next photo, Lucas was embracing Emily. The big diamond sparkled in front of the camera. I could guess what she would say. It was nothing more than life was too simple. I liked her post and accidentally scrolled out of the page. If you want to find it again, you won't be able to. Emily keeps sending me messages. The first thing she said was an apology. She said, Zai, I'm sorry, this is necessary for our short play. It was just a joke. I thought you hadn't noticed. We didn't think it was a big deal, so we didn't tell you. Zai, you wouldn't mind, would you? Emily speaks very cautiously. She revealed no flaws. I ruined the cake with a fork. Lucas suddenly ate it all in one bite. He asked, Zai, what kind of bracelet do you like? How about a rose? These words pierced into my flesh like silver needles. Although not fatal, they made me feel very painful. I threw away the fork. I held back my sobs. I said loudly, okay. That night, Lucas suddenly had a whim. She insisted on taking me to a gathering at a vineyard. We've been together for many years. I rarely have the opportunity to go out, and he is quite pleased that I'm not very sociable with outsiders. The atmosphere at the gathering was lively. Lucas seemed to be in a good mood. Emily was drenched in dew. Her shoes were covered in mud. When I pushed open the gate to the estate, I accidentally knocked over a large section of grapevines. These grapes are important ingredients for next season's wine. The estate owner's expression changed immediately upon seeing this. He questioned, Who are you? How did you get in here? Emily was rubbing her sprained ankle. Her eyes were red. She looked at Lucas with gentle eyes, choked up and unable to speak. Lucas frowned. He helped Emily up. His tone was somewhat serious. She is still young. She doesn't know better. Dear estate owner, please don't hold this against her. This statement sounded a bit forceful. Instead, it made the owner even angrier. He stared intensely at Emily behind Lucas. He said with a cold smile, She's still young, okay? Once she finishes setting up these grapevines, I will forgive her. Emily tightly held onto the hem of Lucas's shirt, still too afraid to look up. Lucas held her even tighter. Then he looked at me, holding a rose drink. He said, Little Zai, come help support these grapevines. I was a bit in disbelief. I asked again, Are you saying I should come support these things? I saw the corners of Lucas's eyes immediately droop. His face was filled with an expression that said it's all your fault. Emily usually only does her nails. She doesn't do any work. She can't do these things. Haven't you always been planting flowers? What's the difference in planting anything? The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Not even the sound of insects could be heard. The few visitors looked at me. Let me take a look at you. There was confusion in his eyes. Lucas's friend crossed his arms. Step forward and speak. That's right. Little Zai, Emily's hands are too delicate. You're definitely more capable. He not only works efficiently on a daily basis, he is also very competent in other areas. The rich kids all started laughing. My clenched fists turned white at the joints. Lucas's expression darkened further. He was about to criticize their rude behavior, but Emily suddenly fainted on the ground. The people around panicked at once. They quickly picked up Emily and got her in the car to leave. I was the only one left there, listening to those increasingly outrageous remarks. Finally, the owner stepped in and drove those people away. He helped me prop up the grape trellis, noticed my injured finger. He even brought me some gloves. He said, Little girl, why do you have to do this? This sentence left me stunned. Indeed, why should I do this? I just can't bear to see the grapes I've painstakingly nurtured wither away. I feel heartbroken for these grapevines that seem worthless to others. And I feel the same for myself, who is equally insignificant in the eyes of others. Late at night, the owner drove me back home. I stood in the yard for a long time. The yard is filled with flowers. Most of them are Lucas's favorites. I picked these flowers one by one, carefully wrapping them up. The wintersweet was planted after Lucas read the poem about falling plum blossoms like snow. It was planted after being brushed by that line of poetry. The daffodil symbolizes purity. It was brought back by Lucas after watching a ballet performance. The hydrangea looks very cute. It was won by Lucas at the amusement park during a ring toss game. All the flowers are Lucas's favorites, but among those flowers he talks about day and night. Only his favorite rose was missing. At that moment, I finally understood. He likes roses, but his family is unwilling to make space for it. Lucas's exclusive ringtone went off. The phone screen lit up. He sent a message. "I just came out of the hospital. I'm on my way to pick you up at the winery. The rose bracelet is finished. You can wear it in a little while. I wasn't very nice just now. I'm sorry." The incoming call blocked Lucas's chat window. "It's a call from Dad. Zai. I've arrived. The car is right outside. Come out, he's here." The corners of my mouth, which were originally drooping, slightly lifted, dragging my suitcase. Ready to leave. Before I go, the last thing I did was to bury all the rose petals. At that moment, I suddenly understood Yu's feelings for flowers. Will there be tears as well? As soon as the car hits the highway, I sent Lucas a message right away. "Lucas, it seems I don't love you that much anymore." I immediately removed the SIM card. When Emily received my message, she was leaving Lucas at home. I never argue with him, only he gets angry for no reason. And I would try every way to cheer him up after he gets angry, even if it means biting my lip and enduring the scolding. I would never mention breaking up. Lucas seemed a bit dazed. He thought I was angry about the grapevine issue, thinking that a rose bracelet from him would suffice. I never judge the quality of gifts. As long as it's from him, I feel happy. But when he made the call on the other end, there was a cold prompt. It said the user is powered off. His dull nerves finally sensed something was off this time. He felt an indescribable sensation in his heart. Lucas saw Emily could already sit up, so he found an excuse to leave. But Emily didn't give him any time to hesitate. She directly took his hand and placed it on her chest. "Lucas, feel it for yourself. Is my heart racing particularly fast?" Lucas could never resist her tenderness. As soon as he touched her, he would forget where he was. But today, he felt very uncomfortable. Emily's delicate skin and toned body didn't spark any interest in him at all. "I really have something to deal with. You should rest first." After he said that, he turned and left, without even looking back. Emily looked at the closed door. Her previously rosy face suddenly turned pale. She lay back down on the bed. Her expression became somewhat strange. When Lucas drove back to the manor, he found that there was no one inside. He was sure I had already left. A cold wind was blowing through the manor. Lucas was worried that I had left on foot, so he searched back and forth on the road several times. He suddenly remembered how I supported the grape trellis, and my figure, which overlaps with the one who plants roses every day. He immediately felt a wave of discomfort in his heart. I plant roses for him, but what am I planting grapes for? Is it for that woman who makes me feel awkward? Lucas was as anxious as a madman. He desperately called those friends from earlier. He asked them if they had taken me home. Unfortunately, they all said no. Until they left, I was still alone in the manor planting grapes. "Lucas, what are you still looking for her for if she likes to plant those things? Let her plant them. Just spend time with Emily, that's all." Lucas's attitude towards me is nothing like that of a girlfriend. His behavior shows not a hint of affection. It feels like he treats me as a gardener he can summon at any time. His friends also do not respect me because of this. Behind my back, they all call me the gardener. Maybe he actually enjoys it. He can play in the mud again. Haha, when Lucas is gentle and considerate to others, I am here facing the cold, muddy ground alone. He is completely unaware. What he does makes me look down upon, or maybe he knows, but he just likes seeing me looked down upon by others. He said, "It doesn't matter what I plant. He just sees me as a flower farmer who doesn't match his status, making everyone think I'm just an ordinary person who only knows how to handle dirt." He suddenly got angry after hearing his friend's words. He won't allow others to look down on me, even though he is the one who looks down on me the most. She won't feel happy. Instead, she will feel exhausted. My hands aren't suited for just anything. I can only plant roses. He took out his phone and called me, but all I heard was that the number you dialed is turned off. Lucas couldn't get through. I felt even more anxious. He then sent me a message, but I don't know what to say. He typed a lot of words. Then he deleted and revised them. In the end, nothing was left in the dialogue box. He urgently looked for me. Eventually, he drove to the vineyard. "Sophie, where are you? Come home with me. You can't hold anything else in your hands. Hurry up and come out." Lucas shouted loudly. "You don't listen to me. Then I won't love you anymore. Come out right now." He used all his strength. The owner opened the door with a cold expression. As soon as Lucas saw him, his expression immediately darkened. He quickly stepped forward, planning to find me in the garden, but he searched for a long time and couldn't find me. He grabbed the owner's hand and asked sternly, "Where is she? Where did she go? I can't find her anywhere. Did you send her to the mountains to plant grapes? Did you hide her? Is it just because of those grapes? I'll just compensate you. Quickly let her come out and go home with me." The owner watched Lucas anxiously jumping in place. He sneered. "Who are you performing for now? Belated affection isn't worth much when you took another girl away back then. I not mention compensation. Only talking about it now. Don't you think it's too late?" Lucas has never regretted. But at this moment, this emotion made him lose his rationality. He wanted to find me in the vast vineyard, but he overlooked the clues the owner gave him. Lucas said loudly to the owner, "Stop saying these useless things. I only know that she has been planting grapes. Now you tell me. Where is she?" The sound startled the sleeping birds. They flew off into the distance. The owner's gaze at him was not very friendly. It was even a bit provocative. "It's the dead of night. A lonely man and a woman. Where can you go?" Lucas couldn't hold back any longer. He slammed his fist down on the car hood. "She has already left. She's gone. I took her home. If you were waiting to pick her up, you'll probably wait a lifetime, but on my way back, I saw her dragging a suitcase onto another car. Every word you said, I don't believe at all." Lucas is a bit unsteady on his feet, thinking back to the times I spent with him every day, the scene where I asked him about marriage while holding roses. He didn't believe I would leave at all. The landlord intentionally provoked him. He said, "People are too greedy. In the end, they end up with nothing. You walked away with another woman in front of everyone. She could also leave without a word. You really don't care. I don't even know if she would stay awake all night because of my troubles. You don't even care where she is." Lucas finally regained his sanity. He is convinced that I'm not here, because the grapevine has returned to its original state. Moreover, I also sent him a message. That sense of fear of loss made it hard for him to breathe. Lucas suddenly realized he shouldn't have let Emily go home alone. He knew Emily was doing it on purpose, but he still left me behind. As for me, if he had discovered my intention to leave earlier, he probably wouldn't have looked kindly at anyone. Lucas rushed home with the last bit of hope. When he saw that dark, empty house, he finally panicked completely. The rose in the greenhouse dared to run away. No one can stand it. The rose can only stay by the little prince's side. Nowhere to go. He stood still, staring at the bouquet at the door, suddenly realizing how ridiculous his past behavior was. I wrapped the last bouquet of flowers for him. Unfortunately, there wasn't a single rose inside. The rose has gone to seek freedom. He can't keep me, and I no longer belong to him. I have always tolerated his behavior. I was immersed in the illusion that he loved me, unwilling to wake up. I slept in the dream he wove. I imagined him as the little prince who deeply loves the rose, but we were both wrong. What he loved was not the rose, but a nanny who would unconditionally give herself to him. Looking back, I actually understood long ago. When Lucas confessed to me, he just wanted to change his taste. He just wanted a woman willing to give everything for him, a woman who loves him wholeheartedly. From the moment I stepped into university, I became the most eye-catching star on campus. I was influenced by my parents since childhood. My personality is quite extroverted. I also have a great talent for planting. I didn't think much of Lucas, but I became the focus of this group of people. They were curious about what kind of man would make a proud woman like me submit. At the same time, they wanted to know if I would be changed by Lucas, to become someone who obeys him. He said he likes proud roses, but he didn't notice. I used to be the proudest person. I can pretend not to care about his motives for being with me, but that doesn't mean I truly don't care. My departure is not just because of Emily, but also because of the previous Sophia and Olivia. A multitude of Emilys accumulated, wore down my love for him little by little. Lucas searched the entire house, but found that I had already vanished after leaving traces of our love. I was nowhere to be found. He finally understood. I really no longer need him. Lucas sat on the stairs with his head down, desperately trying to recall where I might be hiding. He finally remembered that rose garden. His back suddenly straightened. He told himself, "I can't give up on that hard-earned garden of double-petaled roses." In the rose garden, Lucas is shouting his name loudly between the muddy land and the towering mountains. "Sophie, I was wrong. Can you come out? Can you give me another chance? I know the problem lies with me. Sophie, where are you?" He stands on the empty land. Only the cold wind howls around, no response. No one notices him. In the vast 300 acres of flower fields, only a patch of dirt remains. Lucas stands on the desolate land, staring at the starry sky. His body trembles slightly. He whispers, "Sophie, do you really not want me anymore?" The wind blows through the fallen rose leaves, making a rustling sound. Even the roses are speaking for me. That's right. I don't need him anymore. Lucas looks at the 300 acres of land, suddenly realized, I'm just like those withered roses. They can never come back. He casually gave the roses to others, and the owner of the roses is me. And because of him, they will never return. I will no longer plant flowers for him. He will never hear me asking him with the roses. The roses are ripe. When will we get married? He understands. The roses have feelings too. I wish to be kept in the greenhouse by him. Because I love him. Our relationship. I choose to accommodate, but I will always keep my bottom line. I still have feelings for him, but that's as far as it goes. He once compared me to a rose, but to please another woman, he personally destroyed everything between us. Isn't that the same as directly ending our relationship? He recalls when we first met, my sunshine and confidence. But over the years, he has gradually erased these traits from me. Lucas has been reminiscing about our time in this rose garden. He feels a deep sense of regret. I can no longer be found in the rose garden, and no one knows where I've gone. We are like the wilted rose vines on the ground. Only beautiful memories of the past remain. On the way back, Lucas's messages kept coming in one after another. Sometimes they were humble requests. Other times they were angry accusations. I only saw these messages later when I turned on my phone. Dad arranged a bunch of things for me. In less than 3 days, I had to transfer to Damascus. I was so busy that I didn't even have time to check my messages. Lucas was lost in memories all day long. He had no mind to care about Emily at all. Emily was afraid that her hard-earned catch would run away. Every day she tried every possible way to make a fuss. One day, Lucas got drunk. He had just arrived home when he received a call from Emily. On the phone, her voice was as cheerful as usual. He used to like it this way. "Lucas, there was an incident in the rose garden." Lucas suddenly snapped to attention. Something happened. What happened? Emily paused for a moment. A mischievous glint flashed in her eyes. She said softly, "I noticed new leaves sprouting in the rose garden. It seems like it's about to bloom." Lucas hurriedly got up. He ran over quickly. He thought the flowers had bloomed. I will come back. But how could a rose that has been uprooted ever bloom again? He pushed open the iron gate of the rose garden. He found that the once firm soil had become loose. He saw Emily holding a small hoe, squatting on the ground, slowly turning the soil. She looked up at him and said, "Lucas, look, I want to fill the entire garden with the roses I planted." Emily didn't wait for him to respond. She was wearing a high-end tailored outfit, wearing an exquisite makeup. She directly hugged him and asked, "Are you happy? Except for Sophie. I can also plant roses for you." Lucas smelled the fragrance from her carefully styled hair. He couldn't help but turn his head to the side. He thought of me when I was working. My hair was a mess. My head was full of sweat. I held a hoe that was almost as tall as I am every day, wearing loose overalls. As soon as I saw him coming, I would stand up and smile. My movements were a bit like a kangaroo. He has seen what a real gardener looks like, so he felt very uncomfortable with Emily's pretentious behavior. Thinking of this, Lucas frowned. A wave of disgust rose in his heart. He pushed Emily, who was neatly dressed, away. Seeing this woman imitate how I farmed, yet she was dressed neatly with exquisite makeup, he suddenly felt a wave of nausea. In the past, he always complained that I looked messy while planting flowers every day. Don't dress up for myself. I feel like I'm very plain. He thinks Emily is just like the willful and proud me from before, but he never considered why I have changed to be this way now. Actually, I just want to do my best to fulfill every wish of my loved one. Lucas finally understands. He loves not my stubbornness, but the me who wholeheartedly dedicates myself to him. He loves the me who is willing to work hard for him, just to make him happy. He loves me. Lucas looks at Emily again, blaming everything about my departure on her. He says discontentedly, "If you can't do anything, then don't do it. It's too fake." The woman's smile just appeared and was interrupted by his words. She froze there, not knowing whether to cry or to laugh. Lucas speaks firmly, "Sophie left all because of you. You don't deserve to touch her things. Leave right now, and don't come looking for me again in the future." The words just left his mouth. He pushed Emily out of the rose garden. He locked the gate right in front of her. Emily opened her mouth to explain. By the time she came to her senses, Lucas had already driven away. Lucas, Her cries were carried away by the wind. This time, Lucas did not look back. Emily shouted with all her might, "Lucas, you dare to leave me alone in the mountains? You will definitely regret it." When I learned about this, I was touring the rose garden in Damascus. I always thought Lucas would only remain in my memories. Since being with him, I lost all my friends, so after leaving, I haven't contacted anyone again. Lucas would only cause a stir domestically. He wouldn't be able to find me at all. After all, I have my dad protecting me. After leaving him, I found out that I'm particularly good at gardening. Planting flowers makes me happier than being in a relationship. I discovered that I actually really like flowers, but it's not that I truly liked him. However, I'm still quite grateful to Lucas. If it weren't for him, I might not have learned how to plant flowers, and I wouldn't have realized my talent in this area. Now, I've slowly started to forget him. During these years in Damascus, I've been working hard to learn, from planting flowers to making incense. Every step I've committed to memory. I introduced the latest technology to my father's company. In the end, I successfully cultivated roses even more beautiful than Damascus roses. I returned to my country with the latest technology. Many media outlets wanted to interview me. They were all curious about who had cultivated those world-famous roses. My father helped me fend off most of the interview requests, but to raise the company's profile, I had to make public appearances. I had been abroad for too long enough that I almost forgot the days I spent with Lucas. So, when Lucas suddenly appeared in front of me, I was momentarily stunned. I tried hard to recall the past. Then I just wanted to avoid him. The reason I wanted to avoid him was simple. I just felt that meeting would bring trouble. Being with him is really annoying. Every time he sees me, he always starts talking from the year we dated. I couldn't avoid him. He is still as impulsive as he was a few years ago. Fortunately, there is a glass window between us. Otherwise, he would have rushed over by now. I quickly tugged at my dad's sleeve. I wanted him to leave. "Sophie," Lucas was banging on the window, shouting if awkwardness had levels. "I am currently the most awkward one." He saw that I didn't react. He shouted again. "You made me wait so long, and now you want to leave." He was filled with grievances, as if I was the one in the wrong, as if my success was the key reason for leaving him. He keeps rambling on, recalling every little moment of our love. He even mentioned the roses I planted for him. These stories make me feel particularly uncomfortable. "Lucas, stop talking." Lucas quieted down, realizing I was talking to him. He showed a slight smile. He said, "Sophie, you finally want to talk to me. Have you forgiven me? You know what? I have loved you all these years. The so-called deep feelings of that man are worthless." I watched his performance. My body stiffly said, "I clearly told you on the day we broke up. I no longer love you. Impossible. You can't not love me." He insisted. "You planted 300 acres of roses for me." Lucas instinctively retorted. My past was exposed by him, laid bare in front of everyone. I really can't do anything about it. I can only let him leave for now, so I can focus on my work. I said, "After work, let's talk alone. Is that okay? Let's meet in the company conference room. The floor-to-ceiling windows are bright." I looked at the unfamiliar street outside. I feel very relaxed. I haven't been back for a long time. Things have changed quite a bit here. I have changed a lot as well. Lucas is sitting in front of me. He keeps bringing up our past. He said, "Sophie, you know, after you left, Emily still wanted to move your rose garden." I stopped her. He continued, "I have kept your things all this time. I have never been able to let you go in my heart. Shall we get back together?" Okay, these words feel meaningless. I felt no wave of emotion in my heart. Let's forget it. I interrupted him. "The rose garden belongs to you. It's not mine. Let's talk about it again. The estate I currently own is much larger than the one you gave me." I added, "It was because of your influence back then. That's when I started growing flowers. That's how I achieved what I have today. This point, I have to thank you for that. I finally understand. It seems you have never noticed my efforts. One-sided devotion cannot make love complete. You used to ruin the flowers I painstakingly grew. In fact, it hurt my feelings for you. When feelings are gone, love also disappears. I'm sorry. I haven't loved you for many years." I pushed the door open and walked out. His cries didn't evoke any sympathy in me. Finally, I had the chance to face-to-face clarify things. I also officially bid farewell to the past. Life returned to tranquility again. Every day I am busy in the rose garden. Besides taking care of the rose garden, I'm also in charge of the company's fruit and vegetable project. I met the owner of that vineyard. This time, I finally have the chance to taste the wine properly. walking in the mountains with him. He said, "This barrel of wine is from the grapes you helped tend to back then." He smiled and poured me another glass. He asked, "Do you remember the woman who accidentally knocked over the grapevine?" I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I reached out to touch the grapevine. "Of course I remember. You made me plant grapes in the middle of the night. I can never forget that." The vineyard owner sneered. He said, "After Lucas broke up with her, he kept pestering her. In the end, their feelings didn't align. He simply kidnapped her directly. She was locked up in the rose garden, enduring torment for several months. That place is usually unvisited until Lucas's family reported him missing. He was only found then. He looked completely unrecognizable. I don't feel much about this. I think Emily's sacrifices for this man are not worth it. Even if she wants revenge, she shouldn't involve herself as well. Does the little prince really love that rose? I'm not clear on the specifics, but I'm sure. Lucas is not the little prince from a fairy tale, and I am not a rose trapped under a glass dome. My future is full of possibilities.